Today in math, we will be learning how to solve frames and arrows problems. To complete this video lesson on your own, you will need the video notes guide. I placed those papers back next to the math bulletin board near the Blended Learning Constitution. After you've completed this lesson, you will work with a partner or in a small group to complete activity card 31. Our LEQ for today is how do I solve frames and arrows problems? When we're talking about frames in math, we are not talking about a bed frame or a picture frame or the frame of a pair of glasses. We are talking about the shape that has a rule applied to it and continues on to the next number. So the frames, in this case, are circles. They can be any shape, and they are all connected by arrows. So when we're talking about arrows, the arrows actually represent the rule that is given to you that is in the front of the problem. Sometimes there's a rule in the box, sometimes there isn't. So in this case, we have the rule of add 2. So we are going to take 6 and add 2 to 6, and then we end up getting the number 8. We continue the rule and we add 2 again, and we then get the number 10. If we add 2 to 10, we get the number 12, and if we add 2 to 12, we get the number 14. As you can see, what I like to do is actually write the rule on top of my arrows, so that way it's a great reminder for me to be able to remember what the rule actually is as it continues. So what you're going to do is you're going to practice on your own and fill in number 1 on your video notes guide. So in this case, we are adding 5. So pause the video on your screen by hitting the play button. It'll pause the video. Complete number 1 on your video notes guide. Now, sometimes when we're talking about frames and arrows, they can involve any operation. So in this case, our rule has changed from an addition problem to a subtraction problem. So if we take 22 and we take away 4, we're going to get an answer of 18. If we take 4 from 18, we end up getting a number of 14. And now you're going to pause the video again, and you are going to complete number 2 on your video notes guide, completing the rest of this frames and arrows problem. Now, sometimes we have frames and arrows that actually have a missing rule. If we look at this example, we have no rule in the rule box. We have some numbers in the actual part of the frames, but we don't know what rule that they used in order to go from 20 to 30. So you have to think to yourself, what do you notice about how the numbers change? A lot of times, if you look and see if the numbers get bigger, you're talking about the rule could be addition, or it could also be multiplication. If the numbers get smaller, a lot of times you have to think about subtraction and division. So in our case, when I look at this, I see that our numbers go from 20 to 30, so that tells us that our numbers are getting bigger, which means I need to think about addition and multiplication. Some helpful tips. Check if your numbers are getting bigger or smaller, like I said previously. If the numbers are getting bigger, then you know you are adding or multiplying. If the numbers are getting smaller, then you know that you are subtracting or dividing. So here's another example. If I look at this, I have a 92 followed by an empty frame, then I have a 72 and a 62. So I say to myself, I know that those numbers are getting smaller. So I know I have to think about subtraction and division. What I want you to do is fill in number 3 on your video notes guide. Make sure you fill in the rule and all the missing numbers inside of the frames. Pause the video again so that you complete number 3 on your video notes guide. Now that you have finished your video notes guide, what you are going to do is work in pairs or in a small group. So it can be groups of 2 or groups of 3, and you're going to complete activity card 31. In this case, what you're going to need is the paper that says more frames and arrows. I've placed it on the counter in the back of the room. You are going to complete problems 1, 2, and 3 where you make up your own frames and arrows problems. Then, when you get to number 4, you're going to choose a rule. You're going to use the rule to fill in some of the frames, and then you're going to leave some of the frames blank. You're going to trade papers with one of your partners in your group, or if you're in a group of 3, you're going to switch papers with someone in that group of 3. Then you're going to solve the other person's problem. Hand the paper back to the person that created the problem so they can check to make sure that you are correct. Once all members of the group have their original papers back, please talk about how you actually solved the problem for number 4. After you and your partners or small group have finished activity card 31, move on to other items in your agenda under collaborative. Remember, this video will be here for you to be able to use to refer back to and help you anytime you get stuck on frames and arrows problems.